Hi everyone, this shop has now been open for around 3 weeks and we are novice booksellers at Sherlock and Pages in Frome, Somerset, for those of you who don't know. And it was only in June this year that we had the idea to do the bookshop, and we've had to learn all about the book trade. We didn't really have any retail experience either, so we have been learning so quickly. And in this video, I thought I'd share 5 of our top observations, lessons learned from novice booksellers, trainee booksellers. And for anyone who spends time in bookshops and likes browsing, or anyone who's thinking about opening their own business, small shop, or even a bookshop, I think this really might be of interest to you. Lesson number 1, people love a recommendation. In the bookshop, I would say probably around 70% of the books that we sell will be ones that are either on this table here, where they're laid out for people to take a look at which titles we've selected, or they will be books that I have put front facing. If a book is on the top shelf or on the bottom shelves, it's unlikely to sell. And I can't emphasize how much this is the case. So there's many times that I have gone and picked a book that might have been in a more obscure position on the shelves, put it more prominently or put it by the till, and it will sell within half an hour, whereas before it could have sat there for weeks. So if you're really into your books, what I would say is have a delve, because sometimes the quality of the material isn't reflected on where it is in the shelves. We just have a really limited stock, limited shelving amount here, so we're going to have to rotate. Another thing is, within this same lesson, is on recommendations. I've been writing up kind of my observations of these books, why I think they're particularly important. People absolutely love these. People are really looking for my words, my kind of endorsement of that book, why they should get it, who it might be good for if it's a gift. And so that hand selling element is really important. The second lesson is instinct. So as booksellers, we really have to follow our instinct. We are a small independent bookshop. We can't compete on cost with the big players in the industry, but what we can compete on is soul, trust, knowledge and expertise. Now, the publishing industry are constantly pushing books at you as a bookseller. I was at the Booksellers Association conference recently, and I was getting a huge amount of books pushed to me by the publishers. Not all of those were of particular interest to me, and it's easy, I think, to get sucked into what is on trend in that moment and what is being put in your face. But there are so many books that have been published over the last however long, and you're only ever going to read a tiny slice of those in your life. So we need to stay on message to our values, being about conservation, heritage, nature, landscape, history, the arts, beauty, craft, all of those topics, picking the best from what is contemporary and new that our readers haven't seen, and classic books from the past, which maybe people have seen but never read, or actually that have kind of resurfaced and that we can be aware of. I think an example of that, A Month in the Country by J.L. Carr. We've really been pushing that. I think a lot of people have seen it but never read it, and it's been one of our best sellers. Equally, there's been a few titles that we've got in that the book trade, as broadly put, have been really pushing, and we bought a few copies of them and they've just not sold, and I don't think my heart's been fully invested in selling them either. So that's a lesson for me. Got to follow my instinct and more personalised curation. I think we went very personalised, but I think we actually need to go double down on that. Third lesson, this one is a little bit more light-hearted, but people absolutely adore folklore. And when I was thinking, what have I learned as a bookseller, this is one of my lessons. People can't get enough of it. I think there is just such a love of the past, of folk stories, folk tales. So some of the titles that we've been selling really well is Rebel Folklore, and this is one that I saw at a book conference, and it just absolutely, zinged amongst all of the other titles. It's such a beautiful book, and we've been selling loads of those. Weird Walk the famous zine, which have brought out this larger volume. We put this in the window and people are just drawn to it. I think it's intriguing, and it says a lot about people's interests. Other titles, A Treasury of British Folklore. We've got The Book of Barely Imagined Beings. We've had works by Amy Jeffs, Tales from Early Medieval Britain, which kind of touch on some of these themes. That would be a big observation. And I think drawing people into the shop on those topics and then maybe selling them on other kind of related topics around landscape, maybe the works of Robert Macfarlane, some of the more personal memoir nature writing. So we kind of need to tie together our theme and ride off people's enthusiasms. And that is something that I will be looking for more of in the market as a bookseller over time. Fourth lesson would be about engaging with customers. Often a customer will come in and have a question either directly for themselves. I think the most random one I've had so far is, do you have anything on lobster farming? Which for a small bookshop like ourselves was quite unlikely. But as I got into a conversation with the customer, found out their broad interests, we started having a conversation about sustainability, the future of the ocean economy. And we actually had a book on that that we sold them. And it was a really, really enjoyable chat. And I think that you almost need to look for clues in what the customers are interested in or the person that they're buying for. So often a customer will come in looking for a gift for a family member or a friend, and they'll have sort of a vague idea of their interest. And it's a bit of a detective work here at Sherlock and Pages to find out exactly where we can go based on the small clues that they're giving us. And one of the most enjoyable parts of the job is having such conversations with customers, really bringing out books, laying them out on the table before them, talking through the different options. I find not putting too much pressure on the customer is really important when those questions are happening. Let them go, handle the books, make their own judgments. Maybe they can go away. And it's interesting, sometimes customers will go away for a few days and then come back and said, oh, I had a conversation with the person this gift is for, and I actually think you were really right, or is there something else? So it's just that subtle art form of engaging with customers, but doing it in an authentic way, not getting too in their space, but then judging when they want help, they don't want. I think this is an art form that you refine over time, but so far, the most enjoyable part of the job has been having those conversations. And as an independent bookseller that is embedded in the community here, we can offer so much more value than just selling the books. We can recommend places for people to go for coffees, teas, a pint, a meal, walk, whatever it might be. And, that's my enthusiasms, as anyone who's followed my Instagram will know. So yeah, customer relationships are just absolutely key and one of the most important, enjoyable parts of the job. The last lesson, the fifth lesson, is about literary prizes. So I've already learned in the first 3 weeks that people really follow these literary prizes. If a book wins a prize, it will be in the Guardian, the Independent, the Times, whatever newspaper people are reading. It'll be all over social media, and people do pick up on it. So on Friday night, this book, Fireweather, a true story from a hotter world, won the Bailey Gifford Prize for non-fiction. And this had been sitting on our shelves for a while now, because I think with some of our works on climate, they can be obviously very serious and quite intense. So I don't necessarily think they're always the best sellers, but they're really important for us to stock. And I love it when customers come in and want to have a conversation about sustainability, environment, climate, and we can point them in the direction of interesting books. But this one immediately started selling as soon as it won that award. And the judge's language about it, saying that it was a cinematic book taking on the very serious topic of forest fires induced by climate change, and it takes a look particularly at fires in Alberta in 2016 in Canada, where obviously there's just this proximity between the effects of climate change, the impacts of climate change through those fires, and the fossil fuel industry itself, tar sands, oil extraction in Canada itself. So when the reviews started coming out about this book, people were just absolutely loving it. We sold a few copies. I actually can't get any in now, which is another lesson, because the book traders just snap them up as soon as it's won the award. And for us, focusing in part on the environment, we really need this. It's great to see a climate book winning such a prestigious award, not just for the seriousness, the pertinence of the content, but the quality of the writing as well, and the maturity of it. So I need to be really on it, watching out for when titles win prizes that I think we should have in the shop, and judging that and being right on it, because the book trade will just snap these up. So I imagine it might be a week or so until we get more copies. This is our last one and it's in our window, and I'm sure it will sell as soon as we open up again. Okay, so that concludes the 5 lessons. I'm sure there'll be more as we go on. It'd be really interesting to hear from people who've worked in bookshops for far longer than we have. And if those lessons from our first 3 weeks resonate with you, I'd love to read any comments that you have. In the next few weeks, we're going to be working on a few more videos. We hope to get back into a regular rhythm again. We got out of rhythm with opening the shop in terms of producing for the YouTube channel, but now things are settling down a bit and we're getting into our pattern again. We've got some really exciting content that we're planning on putting out there before Christmas and especially in the new year, so stay tuned for that. If you can subscribe to the channel, that would be a massive help to us as we hope to develop this side of things. And yeah, one thing I wanted to say is customer feedback. This probably should have been the 6th lesson, but customer feedback has already really helped us as a small independent business. But applying this to the social media side, really would love to hear your questions about, well, for us, about what it's been like setting up a bookshop, any points that you would really like to know more about, because maybe we could consider doing some videos on that in the future. But thank you very much. Thank you for your patience, as we've not had a video for a while, and long live the Hedgerows.